So, in the first of the two videos, you learned from some teachers about their excitement for differentiated instruction and some of the advantages that it brings and some of the things that it really is not, so that you understand some of the lingo and some of the misconceptions that surround it. But I think the really key piece to that first video is what Dr. Tomlinson said about what you do as an instructor over a period of time to start learning to differentiate instruction. You can begin this process in your college courses and in your methods and then move forward in your student teaching. And the reality is that as an instructor, you will continue to learn strategies for differentiation over your career. She made reference to the point that it is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And just like a sprint, we're not starting out really fast. We're actually taking things kind of slowly and looking at what it is that we can do effectively for the students that we serve. So, you're going to, as she said, collect data. You're going to look at the small things that you can do in your classroom that might help students learn. And then from there, eventually, you're going to put those small things together with a more major or more significant strategy that's really going to help students be successful. So, to move forward with what she had to say, there's a second video here that discusses what their differences are as learners. So let's watch Dr. Tomlinson now.
Are you looking for a better solution to help you effectively run your practice?
We know that students come to us as different people. I mean, anybody who's taught for 15 minutes sees that. Some kids sit still, some kids don't sit still well. Some kids come in with a storehouse of information about a particular topic, and other kids have never been introduced to it. When researchers look at differences in our learning, they suggest that there are probably about 3 at least that make a big difference in us. Kids can differ in readiness level. And when students differ in readiness level, that does not mean what is their IQ. It means given a specific set of learning goals, where is the student in readiness for that. You may have a student who's missed something significant last year that would help them move ahead in a subject. But as soon as they've got that missing piece, they can move really quickly. And so readiness is not an attempt to pigeonhole a kid and keep them there. It simply means some kids come in with information, knowledge, skills, understanding, experiences that propel them ahead, and others don't yet have that, but we can help them gain it so that they can move ahead as well. In differentiating for readiness, the teacher's goal is really to make everybody's task a little bit too hard for them. So the reason one task won't always work is that typically what's a little too hard for one kid is a little too easy for another one. Something that's way too hard for one student may still be too easy for another. And so looking at what brain research tells us about the fact that the brain really only learns when the task is moderately challenging, and what people like Vygotsky talk to us about with the zone of proximal development, we really do know that a student has to reach a bit to learn, but not stretch to the point of pain, and certainly not bend down in order to be able to learn. So differentiating for readiness means the teacher is trying to help the students all work toward the same outcome, but at different degrees of difficulty, different degrees of complexity, with different kinds of scaffolding. Interesting point in differentiating for readiness is that if a teacher really challenged an advanced learner, that student would also need the teacher. We often think bright kids are fine by themselves, they're going to make it, and they are going to make it on work that's under challenging. But any student who's challenged will find that they have to stretch and they have to have support, and that's really the goal in readiness differentiation. The second way in which students bring differences to the classroom is in their interest. And whereas readiness differentiation is absolutely imperative for academic growth, Interest-based differentiation contributes to motivation. So when a student sees something that they like connected to what the teacher's teaching, the stock of that unit goes up, and the kid thinks, ooh, that's kind of cool, I sort of see that. That's the stuff that I like there. And what we understand is that when students are interested in work, particularly when it attaches to something that they find interesting, their motivation to learn increases, and not surprisingly, when your motivation to learn increases, your achievement is likely to go up as well. So whereas readiness and interest are two different entities, they intersect in that way. We're not highly likely to be interested in something that is old hat to us and there's nothing new to learn. We're also not likely to be interested in something that's totally beyond our reach. So there's some connections between zone of proximal development and interest, but they really are sort of two separate entities. And by helping students boost their current interests, develop new interests, we're building their motivation to learn, and it is way easier to teach when kids will follow you up that hill rather than having to drag them up that hill of learning. The third way in which students differ from each other as learners has to do with what we've called in this particular model of differentiation learning profile. And learning profile is an umbrella term, and it has to do with how we process information, how we take it in, how we think about it, how we interact with ideas. And that actually is sort of a big messy field. There's a lot of different ways to sort of slice that apple and look at it. But in any case, learning profile has to do with efficiency of learning. Readiness is about growth, interest is about motivation, learning profile is about efficiency of learning. I can learn something in an inefficient way probably. It's just much more tiring, much less enjoyable. And so if I can help a student figure out a way to learn that works for him or her, they're much more likely to learn efficiently and therefore to learn better. So what we're hoping for in a differentiated classroom is that a teacher studies student readiness and is able to help kids start where they are and move as fast as they can towards shared goals. That teachers study students' interests and try to connect what they're teaching to things that matter to kids. And that teachers give kids opportunities to learn in different ways so that students learn a variety of ways to learn and become more and more savvy at understanding what's working in helping them learn. Probably important to say that it's not necessary in teaching to say I can only do one of those at a time. Frequently a task can attend to some readiness variance while it attends to some interest variance, or some learning profile variance while it attends to both interest and readiness. So the goal is not necessarily to segment them carefully, but to make sure that we attend to those three sets of needs in the students we teach.
Okay, so what does this mean in your classroom? What about your preparation, and what about the students that you will serve? Well, one of the things I think is really clear with Dr. Tomlinson is that you don't go gangbusters at all things. What you do want to do first is, again, is collect data and think about where the students are. What is their readiness for what's currently being taught? When you observe the classroom teacher, what are the various students doing? What do you perceive their readiness is? And talk to your CMT about this. Also, watch and see what really gets them activated and motivated to learn. What is it that you can use about their interests that will help them learn the learning objectives that are set forth in your lesson? And then, again, how can you be efficient about it? What is it that you can do that can maximize their time and their process, keep their excitement, and move them forward to learning what they need to learn, and then to demonstrate in the assessment all that they know. So there are three mainstays of differentiated instruction, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each. The first is flexible grouping, and flexible grouping means that we move kids around. It's as simple as that. If they share an interest in something or they share an ability in something, and that ability would cause them to be more efficient in the learning process by working with a partner, working in a small group, working in a larger group where they all manage in the same way, you group them that way. It's pretty much common sense, I would think. Unit menus means that you offer them an opportunity, usually in some organized fashion, with opportunities to do different things that speak to their abilities and their interests. So you may have a section on your bulletin board with 9 squares. And on the squares, columns or rows, you've assigned different ways in which the materials can be used. And so what you're looking at is which column do they do, or which row do they do? And you assign the row, or you assign the column, or do you let students choose? That becomes a question for you as the professional teacher. So unit menus give them an option in the way in which they want to learn. So it may be that they're doing individual work, it may be that they're doing group work, it may be that they are reading, it may be that they are producing something, it may be that they're writing something. Then, tiered tasks. Another way of looking at differentiated instruction is in the specific task. So let's see what these mean. Okay, again, with flexible grouping, we don't want to track students, but we do want to group them so that they can always efficiently and effectively learn and demonstrate what they know. With unit menus, it's a list of choices, and it can be as it says here, choice boards or task cards. And then with tiered tasks, the tiers reach the same goal, and they are essentially the same task, but each level involves a little more time and a little more effort on the part of the student. So as Dr. Tomlinson says, you don't want to put it too high that they can't learn. You want to put it in an area where it's just out of reach so that they can shoot for the knowledge and use their skills, use their prior knowledge, use what they're doing in your classroom to actually gain competence and be able to demonstrate in that area. The challenge for teachers with differentiated instruction is balance of fairness for grading. Parents will say to you, my kid got an A and that kid got an A and they didn't do the same thing. And that becomes a challenge. How do you justify what you're doing with students? And that actually is another conversation for another PowerPoint. You will be using the information on these 2 videos as background knowledge for your assignment over the next 2 weeks when you're out in the field with your CMT in your school. So we'll look at what you're going to be doing, and if you're going to be using technology, if it's available in your school, what difference that might make in your process and your thinking, and then how you're specifically going to start the differentiation process in your classroom. As part of your Ed TPA, you're going to be asked how you make accommodations for students and special needs students. And if you don't have special needs students, then you must identify what accommodations you're going to make for a variety of learners in your classroom. So this assignment will help you with this process. And the assignment is specific. Here are some basics about it. The assignment is specific on Canvas, and so I look forward to talking with you and helping you work through that.